Woke up like it was Christmas morning because it was supposed to be Blake Lively files her amendment day, which will in the future, if you elect me president, be a holiday. But guess what? No such amendment has been filed just yet. It hasn't been dropped. And so I am taking that personally. Anyways, over the weekend, we had tons of things happening in Blake and Ryan land, especially the brilliant PR decision to hit the red carpet for Saturday Night Live's big 50th anniversary. So we are definitely going to discuss that. And also moms, TikTok people, all of the sleuths out there. We finally got some attention. We have felt like we are a part of this lawsuit. Yes, well, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, gave us a little shout out with Billy Bush. I have that for you. So Blake and Ryan have not been seen, obviously, ever since Justin Baldoni launched his massive response to their lawsuit, all of the details, the text messages, and the public essentially turned on them. They were spiking the ball. They had the New York Times doing their dirty work. They were like girl marching with Taylor Swift. Everything was going their way for 2 years. They almost got this movie out of Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios' hands. And then internet sleuths got on it. And so we were kind of waiting for them to reemerge. And in my imagination, in my crazy PR imagination, I did not foresee that they would go right back into the belly of the beast that we are all trying to slay. I did not think that they would come up with this brilliant idea to hit a red carpet first. And that's exactly what they did. They decided to hit the red carpet at Saturday Night Live. So you guys take a look at them walking here just so we can see this.
And on your right, Mr. Reynolds, we can play Comcast.
So coming out of that, I just want to be very clear. For those of you that don't know how these events work, they wanted to be photographed on the red carpet. That's something that's super compelling. Do not miss that little detail. You are very much allowed to decline to walk the red carpet. So if you were just like, we need to get out, we need to get back to our lives and just resume our lives in some capacity and go to this event, you can just go in through a side door, go in through a front door. You don't have to have a bunch of paparazzi stalking you. You just sit down, take your seat, and enjoy an event. And I would have been less offended if they had done that. But no, they wanted to be seen. They wanted their photos to be publicized. They wanted people to see them smiling amongst their A-list friends. And then it gets, of course, worse because they wanted to be so seen that Ryan Reynolds, of course, inserted himself into an SNL cameo. And in case you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. Let's just watch what he does. The context is Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. I love them both dearly. Great movies. Are essentially having all of these stars stand up and surprise. They're asking them questions, and they're supposed to be like a funny skit. And you let me know if you thought Ryan Reynolds was really funny here. Take a listen.
I have a question.
Oh, hey, Ryan Reynolds.
Hi.
Hey. Ryan Reynolds, how's it going?
Great. Why? What have you heard?
Get it? He's just being his funny Deadpool self, guys. So ironic, and it's so funny. He's like mocking the situation. And I do want to point out to the homie Kevin Costner behind him, because what's excellent about this, in case you missed a little bit of this double entendre, is don't forget that we were informed that part of Ryan's mental issues is because it stems from the fact that he didn't have closure with his father, and his father passed without closure. He told us that. He got really intimate with us when he was trying to, I don't know, beat up Justin Baldoni. And part of that story arc is the fact that he's obsessed with Field of Dreams, the movie that Kevin Costner was in. And for some reason, he's obsessed with this movie because it has to deal with fathers and a father passing. And in some skit, he says he thinks that movie is real life. So it's amazing that Kevin Costner happens to be the person that is sitting behind him. And you can just see he is not pleased. He just doesn't find it to be funny. He seems to be trying to look to see if he can catch Blake's face there. And he just didn't find it funny. He did not break character once. He just was like, okay. And there were other people as well who didn't find it to be entertaining and were just sort of like, okay. And you could see that they didn't want to be inserted into, I guess, what you could now refer to his various Deadpool scenes, where he wants people to think that he's surrounded by friends because he's a very small, insecure man. And so what makes Ryan feel good about himself is money and power and proximity to power. And of course, my thoughts on this, the internet did not like this at all. Not shocking at all to see that there was this vicious reaction to this. These are just some of the top comments that were on SNL's Instagram posts. They wrote the top comment here. It was funny until the cringe Ryan Reynolds couple made it awkward. Read the room, get out. Could have done without Ryan and Blake. So exhausting. Missing Ryan Gosling, which is really funny. I didn't know Saturday Night Live approves bullying from Ryan and Blake. And that is kind of one of the, first and foremost, deep ironies of what's going on here, is the fact that Saturday Night Live has made itself almost an enemy, I would say, of half of America, because, you know, they were very much, okay, it's fine, you can have your political beliefs. They have established themselves as liberals. And for years, we kind of heard this message, you know, Trump is a bully, Trump is a bully, Trump is a bully. Alec Baldwin skit after Alec Baldwin skit after Alec Baldwin skit. Whether you believe it or not, that's how they've branded themselves. And now you have them being the first to accept Ryan Reynolds, right? And the first to say, we don't actually care. We know we have access to the messages. We know how he was speaking, how Blake Lively was speaking, how gross they were in trying to essentially say, we have power and you don't. We're friends with Taylor Swift. But all of that gets wiped away because guess what? He is, his agent is Ari Emanuel. He's a powerful Hollywood guy, and we all respond to Hollywood power. And there's a hypocrisy and a fraudulence there that the public is picking up on. And so that's really interesting. Now, we could speak about 1,000 reasons why the public did not like this, why the public did not find this to be funny. And I would say the first thing is because, Ryan, you are forgetting this case is supposed to be about sexual abuse, right? You have told us that your wife suffered a form of sexual harassment, and yet, for whatever reason, you cannot stop mocking that sexual harassment in front of every camera that you see. I don't know, is that the first instinct of a man? If I came home to my husband and said I was sexually harassed, you'd be like, let me put it into a movie script and act it out. Yeah, that would be so great. And I'm going to bring my A-list homies and I'm going to keep writing about intimacy coordinators. That would be weird. That's not something that actually a man who serves to protect his family and his wife would do. It wouldn't be their first instinct at all to try to make money off of it and to try to humiliate this person and to keep mocking it. Your whole lawsuit alleges that you struggled with anxiety from this abuse, and yet your husband is free to go mocking it. And so, yeah, we can actually hear Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, who responds to this little cameo, this non-funny skit, and he's pretty much echoing the internet's sentiment on this when he appeared alongside Billy Bush for an interview. Take a listen to what he had to say.
What did you think when you saw, Ryan, make light of the situation, I guess, try to find some humor in all this?
I'm unaware of anybody, frankly, whose wife has been sexually harassed and has made jokes about that type of situation. I can't think of anyone who's done anything like that, and so it surprised me.
He is absolutely correct, and again, he just wins for his sincerity, his ability to connect with people, regular people outside of the Hollywood bubble, many women who have actually survived sexual abuse, sexual harassment, whatever it is, real rape, who are offended to watch this couple pretend that she is a victim of it as they just can't stop mocking it. And the reality is, if you want to know the answer to the question of why is Ryan able to just keep mocking it, because what's actually funny to him is not the sexual harassment. What's funny to him is that he found a tool to be able to stage a hostile takeover of a business. And they were high. They were totally high on their own supply of power. They were enjoying it. They were enjoying humiliating Justin Baldoni. Like I said, they got so close to winning this. They were so close to the end of their evil plot, unabashed plot, to put him in the basement just for like an extra sprinkle of terror. Like we just are so high on our own supply. We're telling people to fire him. We're calling him a rapist, allegedly, according to the documents filed. Like he said, this WME. We're using our dragon to talking about Khaleesi. And really, this was because we now have so much power that we can stage a hostile takeover of business and nobody can touch us, okay? And the public doesn't like that. They don't like it at all. They see right through it. And I would say another reason that the public didn't respond well to this was because we have already accurately deduced that the both of you are raging narcissists. You think you can simply hit up your A-list friends to further enable your abuse. Basically, what they are signaling by hitting this carpet and intentionally getting photographed is they're watching everyone on TikTok, they're watching everyone on Instagram say, what you did is not okay. And they're standing in front of the world and they're saying, we can't be canceled because we're too connected. So what? Sorry for the rest of you guys. Sorry for the rest of you idiots who are beneath us. We just have to make a phone call to Ari Emanuel and we can get into a skit. And how we treat people doesn't matter. And that's exactly what this evening looked like to the rest of us. Like your billionaire friend, agent Ari Emanuel, phoned up his friend Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and asked if they would like to include you in a skit because you want to be in the skit. And they obliged because why wouldn't they? As Bethany Frankel said, it makes for great TV and views for Saturday Night Live. It was a good marketing decision for Saturday Night Live, a terrible marketing decision for Blake and Ryan and for Hollywood. And if you're wondering, like many people are, whose idea could this have been? My instinct says likely Ryan's, because it is his distinct pattern of behavior. He has demonstrated this over and over again. According to his teacher, remember the one that emailed me from Vancouver, Canada, he's been doing this since he was 12. Like he thinks he can get out of anything by just acting. Remember that email we received, the teacher that was telling us that when he kicked him out of the drama program, then he just came back and put on fake tears and then said how sorry he was. Then afterwards looked at the teacher and said, I was just acting, and demonstrated some form of a pathology there. Like there's something wrong with him where he just thinks, give me a camera and I can persuade the masses. And let me tell you something. I only know one other person who's like that, who truly believes that. And it's a terrifying thing. They cannot see their own demise, even when they're in the midst of it, because they have learned to believe so much in themselves. They are true narcissists. And that's what I see in Ryan. He's like camera, lights, camera, action. People will remember that I'm hilarious, that they love me, that I'm so funny. They'll find this to be self-deprecating and they'll fall back into my arms. Not what happened. Okay. The public rejected this. Another element of this that I want to point out briefly is I keep maintaining my position that Ryan is obsessed with Scarlett Johansson in an unhealthy way because she was the one who walked away. Nothing sends a narcissist over the edge more than losing control. And I believe that her having chosen early on to walk away from him and maintaining her infinite success over him, she's infinitely more successful, has stung him in a way that he's never going to let go of. And when you look through that case, there are so many elements of Scarlett Johansson in it. How he got close to Channing Tatum, randomly putting him in this Deadpool movie for a cameo, when the reality is that he was working on a movie with Scarlett Johansson, and then suddenly best friends, and he's out in Wrexham, Liz Plank, everybody that he was trying to squeeze Justin Baldoni with. You can then also attach the same elements to what he was doing to Scarlett Johansson. Scarlett Johansson had just signed with Wayfarer. It was supposed to be her directorial debut, and he's buzzing through Hollywood trying to literally get Wayfarer blacklisted from Hollywood, blacklisted from WME, trying to get Justin Baldoni, who's working with Scarlett Johansson, fired and branded a rapist. I mean, what is going on here? And so I thought that it was interesting that he chose to make his first appearance at Saturday Night Live. Her husband, her current husband, Colin, I think it's Colin Jost. I think it is Colin Jost, who is one of the lead writers at Saturday Night Live. And so this is kind of like her home in a way. It's definitely his home in a way. So it's her home. Knew she was going to be there. And I feel like he just has to be in the room and has to be seen by her at all times. Anyways, we park that aside because, as I said, today is supposed to be Amendment Day, and so we kept refreshing. I've told my director and producer, if anything comes in, I will just depart. I will just goodbye and leave you guys here because I need to start pouring through all the documents. And I'm going, that amendment was due yesterday. Apparently, what I have now learned is that since it was a holiday, they bump it to the next day. So she has until, I hate to tell you this, midnight to file this amendment. And I am just like, why are you waiting to the very last minute to file this amendment? How is this going to save you? And then the question becomes, what could they possibly include in this? At this point, it would have been wiser for them to take the mediation route, to settle, okay? To say, we cannot win this. But I can tell you that that's not exactly a planned route of escape for them anymore at this moment, because Justin's team is not indicating that they are open to that until his name is forcefully cleared, okay? This is what Brian Friedman also had to say on Billy Bush. Take a listen.
So there was mediation, like there was an idea of mediation, and both sides, your side and Blake's, shot it down. Were you open to mediating this, and the other side said no? Because I don't understand why this could and should end, but it has to be them, right?
Well, I'll comment on what I can. In what was filed with the court before the Rule 26 hearing, the question was asked about whether we would be willing to go to mediation, and whether we were open to that. Our answer to that was no. We're not willing to do anything until Justin is cleared of being called a predator, of being called a sexual harasser. Until that is determined to have not happened, we will be doing this.
That is the way. I'm telling you, that guy right there, he's like my twin flame, whatever that means. He's like my homie. I think we're twins. It's like, I don't know what's going on, but that is how my perspective. It's like no one's even partially bending the knee here. We're not doing this. You tried to brand this man who has a family, who has children, into the public eye as somebody who would be known as a rapist, even though she didn't accuse him of rape. What she described in that lawsuit was like a guy who just like could not control himself, was constantly talking about pornography and wanted her to show her news. Like if you read the lawsuit that she initially filed, that CRD complaint rather that she initially filed, and you had no context, as I had no context. I didn't know Justin Baldoni from a hole in the wall. You know, I'd never heard of Justin Baldoni because I'm not into Hollywood. I don't really watch movies. And when you read it, that is the only portrayal that you walk away with. You walk away with the sense that this guy is so creepy. Like all he wants to do is talk about sex. And he wants to talk about how you have sex. He wants to talk about orgasms. And she removed all that from the context for a reason. It was meant to destroy him. Her and Ryan wanted to destroy this man. And so Brian Friedman is leading the way for all men who go through something like this, who go through a woman for sport, a woman and her husband, which is even weirder. This might be the first Me Too movement that is being guided by another male, being Ryan Reynolds. There's no putting this genie back in the bottle until you fully say, I was wrong, I apologize. He is none of those things. And then we can start speaking about settlements until you have the humility, which I don't think they do, until you have the humility to admit what you did. I think Brian Friedman has to keep fighting. And I want to say this, what's also happening, in case you've missed this, is everyone's kind of jumping ship, at least partially, I should say, because we have Brandon Sklenar, who I want to remind you was read the lawsuit. You love these people like in the moment who just have to get involved. Read the complaint for the love of God, he says. Most of these people are heathens, godless. It's Hollywood. They worship themselves. But he's like, for the love of God, if you even love the Lord, he wrote, then read Blake Lively's complaint. That's how impassioned he was, Team Blake. And of course, we kind of deduced that it was because he got love bombed. And I'm willing to forgive that. If he, just as Brian Friedman is suggesting, gives us the full mea culpa. You know, I want the full, I am sorry, she tricked me. I now realize that her and Ryan were love bombing me. I had no business watching that Wrexham match. They probably lost anyways. And whatever contacts they gave me at WME is not worth me being a part of persuading the public that an innocent man is kind of like a rapist who can't control his sexual urges. Okay, but he won't do that. Instead, he's backing out slowly. And he did this in a manner of stopping by CBS News, sitting across from Gayle King. He was promoting 1923, which is another series that he's involved in. And they just kind of asked him, what team are you on? Team Blake or Team Justin? He's had a change of heart, it sounds like. Take a listen.
I would imagine at this point you're Bennett. You said I'm not in it, but are you Team Blake or Team Justin? He said, I don't speak English, Gayle.
I'm team it ends with us.
Yeah.
And he's Team Taylor and
Yes,
Team
and he's
Paramount
Team
Plus.
Taylor.
Yeah. Got a little nick on his knuckle there.
No. Congratulations,
Yeah.
Bennett. I didn't expect you to answer. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're here and continue.
He's like, yeah, Gayle, yeah. Trained in martial arts. That's real funny.
Yeah, Gayle, you got jokes. Yeah. Thank you, Brendan.
You hear that, guys? Now he's a team it ends with us. I don't know. That wasn't the team it sounded like to me when I read that Instagram post. What? For the love of God, read the complaint. Read the complaint. He pinned it to the top of it. For the love of God, if you go to church on Sunday, if you say your Hail Marys, please read the complaint. Oh, I'm just team it ends with us. No, Brandon, you're a coward. You are a coward because you are still being controlled by power. I suppose somewhere deep down, there's a good person in there, okay? And that's why I said that I respected when her brother-in-law, after reading Justin Baldoni's response, essentially issued a statement and said, look, I didn't know everything, and I realized like I kind of want anything to do with this, and I don't encourage the bullying. And people came down on him, but I was like, no, this is actually respectable. Now that he is seeing the other side, of course he believed his sister-in-law. Now he's realizing he maybe spoke too soon and he pedaled away from it. And that's respectable. What Brandon is doing is not respectable. What Brandon is doing is saying, I know my bread is buttered. I know WME, Ariel Emanuel, the most powerful man at WME, who is trying to take the company private, who is their direct agent, and he is a billionaire, has come out strongly and said, we're going to A-list our way out of this, essentially. Like, oh, Justin Baldoni, Baldoni, remember that guy? That is what Brandon is afraid of. That is who he is afraid of, because WME is his agency. And so he's got to now remain neutral. And if you stayed neutral from the beginning, that would be fine. I'm team It Ends With Us, but you weren't team It Ends With Us. You were team put Baldoni in the basement. And so I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of what you're doing. Like I said, I suppose you're probably a good person behind the scenes. I've seen some of your red carpet interviews. You don't seem to be like super wokey and annoying. But what you did was wrong. And when you do something wrong and you make a mistake, the best thing you can do is have the humility to admit, hey, listen, I said way too much too soon. Shouldn't have involved myself. He could say something basic, like I wish both parties luck, on the rest of this, and would like to respectfully bow out and realize I didn't know everything. Do that, and you might get a little bit more respect from me. All right. Now, just a reminder for you guys of what we're looking for in this upcoming filing. Obviously, what I'm just giddy for, and I'm assuming what her team must recognize by now is that they need to add some teeth to it, right? They just have to add some teeth to this lawsuit. We now have, from his side, text messages. We have a solid timeline. We've got a website that we can browse and read before we go to bed. We can read bedtime stories, just like reading messages between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. She now needs to illustrate her allegations more thoroughly, because the first time around, it honestly read more like a fantasy novel about a damsel in distress. Okay, here's what she said to remind you, to jog your memory, regarding her helplessness in this situation after she survived this tragic sexual harassment that she experienced on set. Now, remember, we're supposed to believe. I want you to imagine this as we go over these initial filings that she stated. We're supposed to imagine that Blake Lively was marching around town with Taylor Swift, arguably one of the most powerful and resourceful individuals in the world, alongside her husband, who has enough money and power to fundamentally transform the script of Deadpool at a whim to mock Justin Baldoni alongside other A-listers, and to fly her mates all around, everybody that's in the UK that Justin Baldoni knows, everybody that he knows, his colleagues, to watch football matches. But Blake is totally helpless. She doesn't know how to file a sexual harassment suit, right? Here's the actual language. As described above, Ms. Lively and others attempted to raise concerns to Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath regarding certain of the conduct described during filming, but they were not addressed, given the futility of asking Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath to address their own behavior. After unsuccessfully attempting to raise concerns with Sony, Ms. Lively expressly told Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath that there were serious HR problems on set. Mr. Heath responded that they knew, implying that someone had mentioned it to them and that Miss Lively had raised concerns. In response, Mr. Heath told Miss Lively that he thought she had wanted to see the nude video of his wife. She's still describing it as a nude video. It's a woman giving birth. It's absurd. Okay. In the same conversation, when Ms. Lively expressed her upset that Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni had hidden the fact that she had been exposed to a COVID outbreak on set, she and her infant contracted COVID. Instead of acknowledging responsibility and committing to safety moving forward, they expressed upset over production days missed and resulting costs. Despite receiving multiple detailed reports by Ms. Lively and others about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct, Wayfarer failed to investigate those reports or to otherwise institute protections for the cast. This is so even though the incidents discussed above, among others, did not take place in isolation, and many, if not all, were witnessed by others. Now, so she's basically saying, like, I tried to report, but I didn't know what to do. I literally Googled, like, she's a part of a union. SAG-AFTRA is a union, okay? I Googled sexual harassment complaint. First thing that popped up in Google was a number. It was like, here's where you call if you'd like to make a complaint about sexual harassment. She couldn't do it. She was just trying. She was just, oh my God, I'm just so powerless. I'm just trying to say that something happened and nobody's listening because the men hold all the power. and I have no proximity to power. Meanwhile, I'm Khaleesi. Here's my dragons. I'm so powerless. I have no power. It's just ridiculous. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for her to show us when, where, and how, and why she was powerless. And of course, the best way for her to do this is to get someone to join on this lawsuit, which her lawyer had implied at that very first hearing. But here's what's interesting. So I had heard 2 weeks ago that someone, I don't know specifically who, but someone was shopping around the alleged HR complaints that she kept referencing. And by the way, they tried to shop around these complaints back in August of last year when everything was going down and she was convinced that he was behind this PR campaign. There was a lot of rumors that there were all of these HR complaints against Justin Baldoni. Those rumors appeared in TMZ. And we know that Leslie Sloan PR has a solid contact in TMZ and gets articles dropped, which is Blake's PR firm. And at that time, because these rumors were swirling around, Sony came out and they said there were no HR complaints that were made. So recently, 2 weeks ago, these alleged HR complaints that were sent to Sony, made to Sony, written to Sony, start making their way again to TMZ, to the Daily Mail, and also to the New York Post. And they declined to publish them because people were saying, we don't know if these are real because they've redacted so much information on them that allow us to determine whether or not they're real. So whoever was behind this, because they couldn't get a big person to publish this, which makes me think they're not going to include it in their new amendment, because why are you trying so desperately to get the public to see them, started leaking to independent media people. And we're going to TikTokers and trying to be like, hey, just, these are the HR complaints, hoping that TikTokers and internet mom sleuths would absorb the risk of showing fake complaints so that they could get sued by Sony, and also hoping that it would somehow transform the public perception and make people believe that there were all of these complaints. And so they leaked onto TikTok. I'm going to show you them and just briefly discuss them because they're irrelevant, because we have no way of confirming whether they're real. But I do believe that they came from Blake Lively's campaign, because I had heard for weeks they were trying to get this published. And so the first one is like Buttgate, and it's exactly the public is supposed to believe that this went to Sony. Her lawsuit states that she went to Sony, but they've curiously removed who made the complaint, removed what date the complaint came in. Why would you do that? Why would you remove that? Why is that redacted information? I'll tell you my suspicion is because I think all of these complaints came in on the same date, and that would have flagged the public as weird. Like, oh, it seems like all of a sudden one person just made a bunch of complaints about one individual, and that one person is probably Blake Lively or even Ryan Reynolds. And it basically summarizes and said that he was trying to help an actress with her posture and had touched her butt in the process. And I think they're trying to make us think that this was what happened to Jenny Slate. Now, we've heard Jenny Slate is not willing to come on in this lawsuit, which means that they're now trying to leak what happened to Jenny Slate. That's my opinion. That's what it looks like, okay? Then there's this one, a second HR complaint, allegedly, which I think is completely faked because Sony has already come out and said that there were no HR complaints, but maybe there's a record of a phone call. I don't know. Who knows? And this one is essentially about... and this is supposed to make us think that it's the young Lily Bloom, which she alleged she wants us to connect the dots here. So she alleged this in her initial CRD complaint. And this is about an orgasm scene and like what he said off camera, which made this person uncomfortable. I'm telling you, this is dirty PR games, dirty PR games. And then we have leaked HR complaint number 3. Again, dates are covered. And you can see that the date of the complaint says M, which has to be May, due to the fact that that's when principal photography took place. And we also know from Blake's lawsuit that May 29th is the date that she alleges that they went to Sony. Okay, she's saying she went to Sony and another actress went to Sony, or it could have just been Blake picked up the phone and complained on behalf of all of them to Sony, which I think is way more likely, and that's why they're covering the date and they're covering the complainant. I think it was Blake Lively. I think she put in all of these complaints on the phone, and maybe there was some record, but that one essentially is obviously Blake Lively because all of that, everything that happened there is what is included in her initial complaint about her talking about the birthing scene and she was uncomfortable and whatever it is. So that's a huge marker to me that they're now trying to get TikTokers to bite on this. It signals to me that tonight we can anticipate that there's not going to be teeth in this, that they're just trying to win the PR war, that they're going out at Saturday Night Live hoping it's going to make people amenable or make people feel like, oh, I forgot how much I like him. They're also trying to get TikTokers to sway and go, oh, pull the Brandon Sklenar, read the HR complaints. He was harassing all of them on the exact same day. There was just one day of filming where he just was a monster. He just couldn't stop himself. He could not fulfill his sexual urges. And he just came on set and was like, let me fix your posture and grab your booty. Because that's Justin Baldoni. I guess my cousin's crazy. He couldn't. This was just one day in May where he just went crazy, unleashed the dragon of sexual harassment. We're supposed to believe that because we're dumb. We're internet sleuths. We're just the moms on the internet. And so it's nonsense. I'm obviously going to be awake. I'm not going to be able to get any sleep tonight. I'll be refreshing until midnight to see when it comes in, making notes at 1 a.m. But it does make me happy to know that we are getting somewhere. It does make me happy to know that we are getting at least the credit we deserve. And so to sum this up, I want to show you that we got a shout out. We got a shout out by Billy Bush. I'm talking about all of the TikTok sleuths and the moms, Billy Bush and Brian Friedman, which is awesome. Take a listen to what they had to say.
You've seen social media. You've seen some mainstream media. Certainly not the New York Times, but you've seen social media and these TikTokers and people on YouTube. They're amazing. They're brilliant.
Yeah, Candace
They're
Owens.
dead.
Candace Owens has been on this like you wouldn't believe. She's a tigress. And the Steph with the deets on TikTok. I mean, there's so many people that are fascinated here, but they're justice warriors. You know what I mean? They see an injustice. And now with metadata and all this stuff, you can track so much of this stuff. I mean, people are doing, you've got free paralegals out there, man.
And they, arguably we could live in a justice system one day where those types of people that have that type of information that are willing to do that type of diligence should actually be the jury one day. And as you know, they are the jury for years. Because people are canceled, people have projects taken away from them, people are ridiculed, people are shunned, right away, right when the allegation happens. There's no, and these people actually give someone a chance.
That feels so good to acknowledge that all of our internet sleuthing and psychotic timeline making. He also, they didn't mention Be Better. Obviously, Marcos has been amazing on this from the very beginning as well. There are so many people that are out there. And yes, they are not going to pull one over us. We don't care how much money you have. We don't care about your Hollywood influence. We care about justice. We care about my cousin, Justin Baldoni, my kombucha drinking cousin. And we are going to see this all the way through for him.